Four-wheel drive prices in this country have been falling, and I've gone through 12 of them. The models where the gap between what you paid and what you'd get today has opened up the widest between 2025 and 2026. What actually did it in each case, and which ones fell for reasons that have nothing to do with the vehicle being any worse than it was the day you bought it. I've had most of these on a hoist at some point. A couple I'd still buy tomorrow at the new number. Here's the thing that surprised me when I started pulling the figures together. The market as a whole didn't collapse. What happened was much more specific than that, and much more uncomfortable, because in nearly every case on this list, the biggest single hit to your resale value wasn't delivered by a buyer. It was delivered by the brand that sold you the vehicle. A press release, a run-out offer, a cheaper variant added to the bottom of the range, and the number under your name at the trade-in desk moved before you'd even heard about it. Number 4 on this list is the clearest example I've ever seen of that in the Australian market. One variant had close to $20,000 taken off its price in a single announcement. And when owners who'd bought at the old price complained, what they were offered wasn't money. Hold on to that one, because it's also where the whole argument in this video lands. Number 3 is a mainstream, best-selling full-size ute where the manufacturer knocked more than $30,000 off its own entry point in one model year. And number 7 is the one where I think the common wisdom is flat wrong, and I'll tell you exactly where I could be wrong about it too. Some of these you'll have seen coming. A few of them you won't. Let's get into it. Quick bit of context first because it matters for every number that follows. The Australian used market in the first half of 2026 was a buyer's market, not a seller's one. Australian Automotive Dealer Association figures compiled with Autograb put used sales at just over 1.3 million for the 6 months, down 6.6% on the same period in 2025. With supply continuing to build through the half, cars taking longer to sell, and sellers discounting harder against each other. By June, the monthly figure was down 16.2% year on year. The sharpest fall of the year. More stock, slower turnover, more haggling. That's the weather all 12 of these were sitting out in. I'll also be straight with you about one number I'm not going to lean on too hard. The most quoted model-level national figure for this segment is that used ute and SUV prices fell 10.7% in the year. To September 2024, the fastest fall of any category. That's a genuine figure, but it's old now, and I couldn't find a clean 2026 equivalent published at the same level of detail. So where I give you a number below, it's a price, a spec, or a sales figure I can point at. Not a modeled retention percentage dressed up as one, right? 12, number 1, the Jeep Grand Cherokee. This is the worst of them, and it isn't close, and the vehicle itself has almost nothing to do with it. Here's the timeline. In March 2025, Stellantis paused sales of the Grand Cherokee in Australia entirely, leaving Jeep here with the Avenger, the Compass, the Wrangler, and the Gladiator. Then the brand numbers underneath it fell out. Jeep peaked at 30,408 deliveries in Australia in 2014. It sold 2,456 in 2024 and just 1,682 in 2025, and the dealer network shrank to roughly 44 retailers. That 2025 total was the lowest annual figure since sales data started being compiled in 1997, down 31.5% on the year before. And 2026 got worse, not better. Jeep delivered 28 vehicles in the month of June 2026 and was sitting at 365 year to date, down 66.3%, with Grand Cherokee stock almost entirely dried up and the Compass now dead here. Now think about what that does to your Grand Cherokee sitting in the driveway. It's not that the engine got worse. It's that the pool of people willing to buy a large, complex, out-of-production SUV from a brand with 40-odd dealers left in the country and a visible question mark over its future got very small, very fast. Parts anxiety, warranty anxiety, resale of the resale anxiety. Every one of those knocks a slice off, and they compound. Jeep, for its part, says it isn't going anywhere. At the Easter Jeep Safari in Moab, the brand's vice president of global product planning said right-hand drive markets are important and that we're committed to right-hand drive and Australia. I take that at face value as a statement of intent, but intent doesn't buy your car. The bloke standing in front of it with a checkbook does, and he's reading the same sales chart you are. Number 2, the Jeep Gladiator, and this one's quick. Same brand problem, smaller audience, thinner support. Through the first half of 2026, the Wrangler accounted for 55% of Jeep's Australian sales at 201 units, with the Gladiator on 86, down 56.3%. 86 nationally in 6 months. A dual cab that's outsold 10 to 1 by half a dozen rivals is a dual cab that a dealer won't take in trade without a very defensive number on it. That's it. That's the whole item. Which brings us to a much bigger vehicle with a much bigger dealer network that managed to herd its own owners far more efficiently. Number 3, the Ram 1500. Ram is not in trouble the way Jeep is. It sold 3,239 Ram 1500s here in 2024, ahead of the Silverado on 2,389 and Ford's F-150 on 2,428. This is a going concern with a real following and a genuine local operation. Every truck goes through a 12-hour remanufacturing process at Walkinshaw in Victoria to convert it from left to right-hand drive using factory-sourced components. So what hit the used ones? Ram did. The 1500 has carried a list price starting at $119,950. Then for 2026, the brand reintroduced a cheap entry grade. Prices for the Laramie Sport, Rebel and Limited were unchanged, but adding the Express Black Edition brought the truck's starting price down by more than $30,000. A brand new full-size Ram for under $110,000. Sit with that for a second. If you're holding a 2 or 3-year-old 1500 and a shopper can now walk into a dealership and drive out in a brand new one, factory warranty and all, for under $110,000, what exactly is yours worth? Not what it was worth in 2025. By the way, whether you drive a Ute, a 4WD, or one of the newer Chinese cars hitting Australian roads, keeping it reliable comes down to what you do before the problems start. That's why I put together the 500,000 kilometre Car Care Bible. It covers 101 habits that can help your vehicle last longer, the warning signs you should never ignore, and how to spot workshop upsells that quietly drain your wallet. To get your copy, just scan the QR code on screen with your phone's camera or use the first pinned comment below. Every used 1500 in the country got squeezed down toward a ceiling that just dropped by a 5-figure sum, and not one owner was consulted. There's a fairness point here I want to make because I'm not accusing Ram of anything unusual. Cheap entry grades are normal. The engine's a good one. The Hurricane Inline 6 in the Express actually makes more power and torque than the V8 in the old entry model. I'd have one. But you should understand that the decision to add it was made in a boardroom, and the cost of it landed on your balance sheet. And if you think a $30,000 swing is dramatic, wait until you see what happened to the next one. Number 4, the Ineos Grenadier. I've flagged this one twice already, so let's do it properly, because the Grenadier's pricing history in this country is one of the strangest things I've watched in 20-odd years around this business. It went up first. Almost every variant got a $5,000 price cut in Australia 1 year after prices had risen by as much as $1,426. Ineos attributed the cut to the French-built Grenadier receiving a tariff concession order, which can be granted where there are no known Australian manufacturers of substitutable goods. Fine, that's a legitimate customs mechanism, and nothing shady about it. But look at where that left the owners. Even after the cut, the base utility wagon and station wagon were $19,500 more expensive than when orders first opened in Australia, and some variants were up by more than $21,500. So the same vehicle carried 3 or 4 different sticker prices inside a couple of years. And if you bought at the top of that range, you were underwater against the showroom on day one. Then it got sharper. By late 2025, the Quartermaster, the Ute version, had been slashed by nearly $20,000. The 2026 range opens at $102,000 and runs to $123,600. And on top of the price itself, the sweeteners. A limited time offer of $15,000 worth of genuine accessories with your purchase. Finance for ABN holders at 1.9% over 3 years, 0 deposit with a 50% balloon. Add all of that up and ask what a private buyer thinks a 2-year-old Grenadier is worth. Because that's what your resale is. Not a formula, just what the next bloke reckons, and the next bloke can see the new car offer. Every dollar of drive-away discount and every dollar of free accessories comes straight off the top of your car. Now here's the part I promised you. When the $5,000 cut landed, Ineos said its agents would engage those customers who'd bought the earlier model year to provide an accessories package of equivalent value. Equivalent value, hold that phrase. We're coming back to it, and it's the whole point of this video. Right, pattern break, because 4 items in there's something you should be able to see now. Not one of the 4 so far lost its value because of a mechanical problem. Not one. No engine failure, no rust epidemic, no recall disaster. Jeep's problem was a sales chart. Ram's was a new variant. Ineos's was a tariff ruling and a marketing budget. In every case, the vehicle in your driveway performed exactly as well on the day it was worth 20 grand, less as it had the day before. From here, the list changes character. The next 4 are Australia's most trusted, most fetishized, most talked about off-roaders. The ones people buy specifically because they hold their money, and they move too. Not as far, but they moved, and the reasons are more interesting. And I still owe you number 7, which is the one where I think most of what you've been told is wrong. Number 5, the Toyota LandCruiser 300 series. For a while there, the 300 was the closest thing to a financial free lunch this market has produced. The first batch of 500 fell so far short of demand that lightly used examples and demonstrators were fetching up to $200,000 before stamp duty against a launch range of $89,900 to $138,190 before on-road costs. Average markups hit 28% over the price of a new one, and the GR Sport was commanding close to $200,000 from some dealers. That's over. Supply caught up, and the numbers came back to earth, where it sits now. From January 2026, the 300 series range runs from $99,340 to $147,160 before on-road costs, up $1,000 across the board. Meanwhile, Toyota's own used listings show hundreds of them available at once, 388 on the certified site, including a 2023 Sahara with 69,503 kilometers at $109,140 drive away. Then the hybrid landed. The first petrol-electric 300 series starts at $156,060 before on-roads for the GR Sport, with the Sahara ZX at $156,810 and $8,900 upcharge over the equivalent diesel. A new tier at the top of a range doesn't lift the used cars underneath it. It shifts the whole conversation about what the good one is. I want to be fair here. In percentage terms, the 300 is still one of the better things you can own in this country. The fall is from an absurd height, not into a hole, but if you paid a scarcity premium in 2022 expecting to get it back, you didn't. Number 6, the 70 series, the 79 dual cab, and the wagon. Same story, different shape. For a couple of years, these things were trading used at silly money because you simply could not get one. 2 things ended that. Supply normalized, and a serious competitor turned up. Until recently, the 70 series was virtually unchallenged. But the Ford Ranger Super Duty now starts from $82,990 before on-road costs, around $2,000 more than the range-topping LandCruiser GXL. And the base Super Duty is comparatively loaded with features against the sparse Toyota. To Toyota's credit, and this is genuinely unusual, it has so far kept 70 series pricing stable, with the LC79 Workmate listed from $76,800. That restraint is the main reason the used ones didn't fall further. But the premium over new era is done, and if you bought one at auction in 2023 hoping to flip it, that trade's closed. You're most of the way through the list now, and the second half is where the reasoning gets less obvious. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, subscribe. It's the only signal I get that the digging is worth doing. Because number 7 is the one everyone's arguing about, and I'll give you my read and my doubts together. Number 7, the Nissan Patrol Y62. Here's what's actually confirmed. Nissan Australia announced in June 2026 that production of the V8-powered Y62 Patrol would conclude that August, with local production of the Australian-engineered Patrol Warrior by Premcar wrapping up shortly after. The Y62 uses a naturally aspirated 5.6-litre petrol V8, making 298 kilos and 560 newton-meters. Final shipments were expected in September, possibly early October. The run-out T, TL, and Warrior were priced at $95,500, $170,100, and $110,660 before on-road costs. Around 5,200 Warriors have been built since 2023, and the replacement, the Y63, brings a 3.5-litre twin-turbo V6 derived from the GTR's engine. making 317 kilowatts and 700 Nm, dwarfing the outgoing V8, with a late 2026 Australian launch. Now, the common wisdom in the pub and the forums is that the last of the V8s will be collectible and hold their money. My read is the opposite, at least for the next couple of years, and here's why. Nissan's own managing director for Oceania said there's already a significant order bank on the existing Patrol and an order bank building on the Y63, meaning a big slug of Y62s are about to be traded in by people moving into the new one all at once, into a market that's already oversupplied. Used values don't survive that, but I'll mark that clearly as my reasoning, not a reported fact. Nobody has published Australian Y62 retention data for the post-announcement period, because it's barely happened yet, and the counter-argument is real. It took half the Y62's lifespan for Australian buyers to warm to it, and when they did, sales exploded. Genuinely loved vehicles with the last of a beloved engine sometimes do bottom out and come back. I don't think this one does it quickly. Ask me again in 3 years. Number 8, the GWM Tank 300. I like this thing more than I expected to. It's also a case study in how fast a value proposition can move underneath you. The Tank 300 launched here in 2023. The current lineup runs from $46,190 for the Luxe Diesel to $59,990 for the Ultra PHEV. Between those 2 points, in the space of about 18 months, GWM added a hybrid, then a plug-in hybrid from early April 2026 with 300 kl and 750 mm combined, and a claimed 0-100 in 6.3 seconds. 115 kilometers of electric-only range on the NEDC cycle. Now stack the offers on top. Drive away deals with the Tank 300 from $48,999, plus a choice of an additional drive-away discount of up to $4,000 or 1.99% finance over 3 years with no deposit and no balloon. Existing GWM and Harville owners offered a trade-in bonus of up to $3,000. If you bought an early petrol Tank 300, you now own the slowest, least equipped version of a nameplate that's been comprehensively outspec'd by its own showroom, sitting against a discounted new one. That's a hard sell, and the trade-in number reflects it. Number 9, and it's a short one because it's a single sentence with a big consequence. In July 2025, GWM discontinued the turbocharged hybrid version of the Cannon Alpha in Australia, leaving the plug-in hybrid as the only electrified option. That's it. If you own the Acced hybrid, you own an orphan powertrain. One model year, one drivetrain, no successor, in a segment where buyers are already nervous about servicing an unfamiliar system. Orphan powertrains always take the hit. Always have. Number 10, the BYD Shark 6. This one deserves care because the Shark's been a genuine success, and I don't want to muddy that. It became Australia's best-selling plug-in hybrid ute in 2025, despite launching in a single grade. But look at what happened to the first buyers. For 2026, the range expanded, a cheaper dynamic cab chassis below and a performance above with a bigger engine and the 3,500 kWh brake towing capacity, while the premium's price held at $57,900 before on-road costs. One tracker has the range's starting price falling to $62,021 a drive away from $63,138 the year before. Then the offers, the Shark 6 Premium at $57,900 a drive away with on-road costs covered and $3,000 in credits when buying the dynamic cab chassis. Against that, the used market. On car sales, I found a 2025 Shark 6 Premium with 21,498 kilometres on a dealer lot in WA at $51,990 excluding government charges. Roughly a year old, 20-odd thousand kilometres, and it's asking about $6,000 under a brand new one with the on-roads paid for. Nobody's buying that used car. That's the shape of a first-generation electrified ute in a market where the second generation of everything is already on the boat. Pattern break number 2, and this is the one that made me want to make this video. Look at what's actually doing the damage in the second half of this list. Not sales collapse, not orphaning, product cadence, new variant, new powertrain, new drive-away offer, new finance rate, every few months, forever. Toyota can hold a price for a decade. Most of the new players are releasing meaningful updates faster than your finance term runs. That isn't a criticism of the vehicles. Some of them are terrific. It's a warning about the ownership maths, and it's the single thing I'd want a mate to understand before signing. 2 to go, and then the part where I show you who's actually paying for all this. Because there's a specific sentence in this video that I think is one of the more insulting things said to Australian car owners in recent years, and I've already read it out to you once. Number 11, the LDV Terron 9 and the ET60 alongside it. The Terron 9 arrived in Australia in mid-2025 as a step above the T60, with a 2.5-litre turbo diesel making 163 kilowatt, up to 3,500 kilowatts towing and a 7-year warranty. Solid ute for the money. The fully loaded Evolve came in at $55,990 for ABN holders, or $58,937 private. Then, within months, LDV cut the drive-away price of the 2025 Terron 9 by $3,000 for ABN holders until March 2026, or while stocks lasted. A model-year-old ute with $3,000 knocked off it before the first owners had finished running it in, and the cautionary tale beside it. LDV's electric ute, the ET60, was priced at $100,000 and is widely regarded as a sales flop. I don't have published Australian retention data for it. I'd guess almost nobody does because so few changed hands. But a $100,000 vehicle nobody wanted new is not a vehicle anybody's chasing used. Number 12, Land Rover, the Defender and the Discovery. I'm putting this last deliberately because it's the item where I have the least Australian-specific evidence, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. What I can tell you is that Land Rover vehicles average around 30% depreciation in the first 3 years from new, and that the brand's reputation for value retention has been dragged for years by high sticker prices and steep maintenance costs. That's brand-level international data. I could not find a published Australian figure broken out by model for 2025 to 2026, and I'd rather say that plainly than convert a British or American number and hand it to you as local truth. What I'd add from the workshop side is the thing that actually drives it here. Complexity plus parts cost, plus a small local specialist base. A Defender that needs an air suspension component in a regional town is a different financial event from a LandCruiser that needs a shock absorber and used buyer's price that in whether or not they can articulate it. So, 12, now the part that matters, go back to Ineos. Prices went up by as much as $14,600. A year later, they came down $5,000, and the people who'd bought at the top were offered an accessories package of equivalent value. I want you to notice what just happened to you in that sentence, because it happens constantly and almost nobody names it. You lost $5,000 of real money, the sort you can pay a mortgage with or a school fee or a vet bill. You were handed back $5,000 of a completely different substance, credit redeemable only at the shop that took the money off you in the first place, on items you may not want, at retail prices they set themselves. Those two things are called equivalent. They are not equivalent. They are not close. Here's the arithmetic nobody puts in front of you. When a brand hands you $5,000 of accessories, it does not cost them $5,000. It costs them whatever those parts cost to land in the country, which is a fraction of the retail number on the shelf edge. So the remedy is priced at your value and paid at their cost, and the gap between those two figures is the size of the favor they've done themselves, while appearing to do one for you. And once you see the shape of it, you see it everywhere on this list. A trade-in bonus of up to $3,000, valid only against another one of theirs. $3,000 of credit applied to eligible accessories, car care products, merchandise or charging solutions through participating dealers. $15,000 worth of genuine accessories with your purchase. Every one of those is a real offer with real value in it. And every one is also a way of moving a headline number without moving the price. Because the moment they cut the price properly, they've admitted what your car is now worth, and they'd rather not. That's the tell. That's the whole thing. When a brand chooses to compensate you in vouchers rather than cash, you are being told precisely and in writing that your vehicle has been repriced downward and that they'd prefer you didn't put a dollar figure on it, and you can turn that straight around. A credit offer is a leak. It's the manufacturer's own estimate of how far the value has moved, published in a form they hope you won't read as a number. Read it as a number. When you see $15,000 in accessories dangled on a new one, that's roughly the ground your used one just gave up. Price your car accordingly, walk into the negotiation already knowing it, and the trick stops working on you permanently. Here's what I keep landing on with all of this. Most of what people call knowing cars is really just knowing engines, compression, injectors, what a big end sounds like at 1100 RPM. I love that stuff and I'll never stop. But there's a second kind of knowledge that costs owners in this country far more money every year, and almost nobody teaches it because there's no trade and no apprenticeship attached to it. It's judgment, reading a market instead of a spec sheet, understanding that a vehicle is worth what the next person will pay, that the next person is looking at the same showroom you are, and that the manufacturer sits between the two of you, setting the terms of the whole conversation. Judgment isn't a talent, it's a skill, like feeling a bearing through a screwdriver handle. You build it by paying attention to the same 4 or 5 signals over and over until the pattern arrives before you've finished reading the ad. And once you have it, you never buy blind again. Not a 4WD, not a boat, not a mower. That's worth more than knowing what a lifter sounds like. Barely. So here's the procedure. Not a rule of thumb, an actual thing you can run on any 4WD, yours or one you're considering, in about 15 minutes. Check 1. Is a new generation confirmed, and when? Not rumored, confirmed with a date. If the answer is inside 24 months, everything below it is on a slope. Check 2. Has the brand cut the new price or added a cheaper variant in the last 12 months? A new entry grade is a price cut wearing a disguise, and it hits you exactly as hard. Check 3. What's the brand's sales trend and dealer count in this country? Falling volume and a shrinking network is the single most destructive thing that can happen to your resale, and it happens without one thing changing on the vehicle. Check 4. Is your powertrain the one being discontinued? Orphan drivetrains take a hit every time. Check 5 and do this one last. Find the current drive-away offer, then add in the free on-roads, the accessory packs, and the finance sweetener. That total is the real price of a brand new one. Yours has to sit meaningfully below it or it doesn't sell. Now the decision rule. If checks 1 through 4 give you 2 or more red flags, and check 5 shows a new one landing close to your asking price, sell now and take the hit. It gets worse from here, not better. If you get 0 or 1 red flag, hold, and don't let a trade-in desk tell you the market's collapsed when it hasn't. Do it tonight, 20 minutes with your own vehicle, 5 browser tabs. You'll finish knowing something about your own car that you didn't know at dinner. And you'll either sleep better or you'll have 3 months warning, and both of those are worth having. Right, over to you, and I want the specific thing, not the general one. What did the trade-in desk actually offer you, and what were you expecting? The gap is where all the interesting stories live. I want the model, the year, the kilometers, the number you had in your head, and the number they said out loud. If you walked away and sold it privately instead, tell me what you got and how long it took, because that's the comparison almost nobody publishes. And if you're sitting on one of the 12 above and the market's treated you completely differently to what I've described here, say so with the figures. I'd genuinely rather be corrected in public than be confidently wrong for another 6 months. Some of the best information I get comes from people who thought I'd missed something and were right. I read the lot and I answer more than you'd think for a bloke with a coffee and a keyboard. Subscribe if this was useful. It's a small thing and it makes a difference to whether videos like this get made. There's one thread I deliberately didn't pull on today, and it's been nagging me for months. There's a specific structure in how a lot of these deals are financed. The bit where the number at the end is set by somebody's forecast rather than by the market. And the more I look at it, the more I think it's doing quiet damage to a lot of ordinary owners who've done nothing wrong. I haven't got to the bottom of it yet. When I do, you'll hear about it. Look after the one you've got. It's worth more to you than it is to them.